Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to the webinar hosted by SEP and Exablox. I'm Richard Yeager, Marketing Manager for SEP, and today I'm joined by a few people. With SEP, we have Lanai Bain, who is the VP of Business Development, as well as James Delmonico, who is our Senior Support Manager. On the Exablox side, we are joined by Sean Darrington, who is their Senior Product Director. Today we're going to discuss how SEP and Exablox is the perfect combination to protect company infrastructures of any size. Lanai is going to give a brief overview of SEP's backup solution and show how Exablox storage appliances are really the ideal destination to send your backups. After that, James will then jump into a live demo and show you the product in action. And then Sean will hop on to talk more about Exablox storage solutions and how it's a perfect fit for backup and disaster recovery. Feel free to ask questions along the way using the question box in the GoToWebinar dashboard on the right-hand side of your screen. There will be a few Q&A opportunities throughout the webinar, so please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll be sure to get to your questions at some point. So without further ado, let's kick it off and get started.
Everyone for taking the time to join us today. So as you guys know, there's a lot of different solutions out there for backup and disaster recovery. So the question we hear all the time is, what makes SEP different? Why should we consider SEP, or why should we look at SEP? And usually there's three main things that we tell people. And the first one is that we're able to support a very wide range of operating systems, databases, groupware, stuff like that. So we find that a lot of folks that we initially speak with have more than one solution in place to meet their needs. They could have one solution for Linux, maybe something else for Windows, sometimes a niche product for virtual technology or a specific database or something like that. So we help companies standardize down to one backup solution and just give them one central management console to manage their entire enterprise, whether it's just in one data center or hundreds or thousands of locations around the globe. The second main thing that we focus on is performance. We're able to use multi-streaming technology, so we can back up an unlimited number of data streams to disk and up to 64 data streams at the same time for each tape drive. So 2 tape drives, 128 streams, and that scales out accordingly. So we're really able to help people decrease their backup windows, and we reach theoretical maximum backup speeds on a pretty consistent basis. And the third main thing that we focus on is reliability. We're originally a German-based company, and the data retention laws are quite a bit different in Germany. And one of the laws that our product is really built around is if in Germany we tell another company that we're going to back up their data, we actually become 100% financially responsible for that other company's data. So what that translates into is if our product ever says, yes, you have a successful backup, you know that your data is there 100% of the time. You're never going to have a situation where you open a file and it's half empty or fully empty. You just simply don't get false positives with SEP. And then there's also cost on here. I wouldn't say it's something that we focus on as a company, but I do think it's very relevant just given the market for the past couple of years and the direction that backup and disaster recovery is going. We come in at about 40% of industry average from a cost standpoint, so we're extremely competitive, and we offer an enterprise solution at a much lower cost than anyone else on the market today. So just to kind of touch on some of the products that we support, some of the different environments that we're a good fit for. Starting on the left-hand side over here, our main product itself can run on Windows, Linux, or Unix. So if someone has a 100% Linux environment and they don't want to introduce any other operating systems, we can just install on Linux, and everything looks exactly the same as if we were installed on Windows or on a Solaris or something like that. So very operating system agnostic. And then we also have clients or agents for pretty much every operating system under the sun today. Moving over to the next column, as far as applications go, we offer full support for Exchange, SharePoint, GroupWise, Lotus Notes, and a host of other groupware technologies as well. Everything we do is native communication, so we can really hone down and get very granular backups and restores. So for Exchange, GroupWise, Lotus Notes, for all of them really, we have either full user restores or single mailbox restore capability, or just single message restore as well. For the Exchange portion of it, in our next release, we actually have a pretty slick looking interface that just looks like an Outlook window where you can drag and drop messages. Moving over to databases, again here everything we do is at a native level. So when we're back with Oracle, we're communicating with RBAN. When we're backing up SQL, we're using VSS. With SAP, we're using backend. So that just gives us, again, very granular capabilities, and also helps us leverage multi-streaming so that we can back these databases up extremely fast. Over on the right-hand side, support for all the major virtual technologies, so VMware, Hyper-V, Citrix, and open source Zen. And then we also offer bare metal disaster recovery, both for Windows and for Linux. So this is just kind of a very simplified diagram of a typical environment that we would come in contact with. And so I'll just kind of go through briefly and describe how we would back up a typical infrastructure. So on the left-hand side here, you can see that we have a SEP server. So that's going to be the main backup server. Attached to that, we could have an Exablox machine. So that could be the local disk that we back up to as our main backup target. We could also be directly connected to a SAN that could consist of disk or tape or a combination. And then right below that little SAN circle, we have a couple different servers. So we have a file server, a database server, email, and directory. So you can see that the email and the directory server are only connected to the backup server via the LAN. So in that case, all of the backup data, or all of the data being backed up, would follow that path and would be backed up across the LAN through the backup server, and we'd send it to whichever media users desired. The file server and the database server are directly connected to the SAN, so that would give us a couple different options. We could either do the backup directly, via the LAN, or we could just do a direct connection to the SAN, which is what we call a LAN-free backup, where we would actually just push all of the data from those servers directly to the SAN. So that works over fiber or iSCSI, and basically is just a big time saver. It increases performance and doesn't, choke up network traffic. We could do the same with the virtual host that we have, the virtual pool over there. So there's several nodes. We could just push the VMs directly from those nodes to a SAN. And if those were hosted on a SAN, then we'd be able to just push VMs from one to the other, which is going to be very high performance. Moving over to the right, we can go through multiple firewalls. We can push data to a cloud. We could actually install our software in the cloud and pull data up to the cloud as well, depending on configuration requirements. And then as far as managing remote sites, again, we can back up to locally attached storage at those remote locations, and then either migrate or replicate data. Or if you have, Exablox nodes, then that's automatically going to happen at the hardware level. So as far as performance goes, we have very high performance. And like I mentioned, we typically hit theoretical maximums when we're doing backups. So one of the reasons that we're able to transfer data so fast is the design that we use for our backups themselves. So instead of just backing up one server and then waiting till that's finished and moving on to the next server and backing up in a very linear fashion, what we're able to do is we set up task groups. And we could set up a bunch of different task groups. So with these 9 servers here on the left, they're all different operating systems. Some may have databases, some may not. They could be used for, various different things. So the way we typically set up a backup for these is we would set up different task groups. So we'd have one for file systems. We'd have another task group for disaster recovery. We could have one for databases, another one for sysvolumes. And so we kick off all of those task groups at the same time. So each one of these servers could have one or two or, 5 different streams backing up simultaneously. And so just with these 9 servers, we could have, 30, 40, 50 different streams running at the same time. And that's how we're able to saturate the bandwidth that we have to work with. So on a 1 gig connection, we usually expect to see about 125 gigs an hour for a backup speed, 120 to 125. And then on a 10 gig connection, we expect to see about 1.2 terabytes per hour. And if we bond our, trunk cards, then that obviously increases as well. So a couple of real world examples of, customers that are using our solution and how this just shakes out in real life. Vodafone, they're the partner company of Verizon in Europe. They have us rolled out to 3,500 sites, and they're wrapping up, I believe, rolling us out to another 1,300, so it'll be a total of 4,800 by the time they're all done. And they manage everything from one central data center. So perfect example of just having one central management interface to manage many different locations and many different environments. National Archiving and Record Administration, we took over their enterprise email system about 2.5 years ago. And when we first spoke with them, they were starting backups on Friday night, and those backups were completing the next Friday afternoon if they finished. So they basically had a 1-week backup window, and we went in. We didn't make any hardware changes. We didn't, do anything. All we did was install our software and enable the multi-streaming. And the first backup we did was 13 hours. And after we modified that a little bit, we got it down to 11 hours. So those guys went from, a 1-week backup window down to 11-hour backup window that they could do every night. So they started doing nightly backups, which was a huge improvement for them. Similar situation with Port of San Diego. Their backups went from over 100 hours down to 4 hours. Public Works of Canada, another example of having 42 locations across the country and manage everything from one main data center. Looks like there's a couple other examples here. I'm just going to kind of jump over these. One cool statistic that Georgetown University sent us was after they started using SEP, they were having a lot of problems with backups, and they were constantly coming in and basically just spending their weekends managing backups. And so they called us and said the amount of time that they saved, the amount of overtime that they saved once they got SEP in place actually paid for the entire software suite within the first 4 months of ownership. And they said their backup related, time that they spent related to backup decreased over 90% in the first first month or two, I think. So we also offer archiving. Basically, this is just a file lock technology. So worm technology, and basically just makes it so that people can't go in and delete any data or modify, change, anything like that. We also offer deduplication, and I put generic drivers on here. And basically what we mean by that is we don't have our own custom drivers or driver configurations. So we're able to back up to any type of media that's recognized by an operating system. Like I mentioned, we also have bare metal for Linux and for Windows. So that just basically gives you a bootable image file and helps you recover from a disaster very quickly. We also offer full support for VMware, Citrix, and Hyper-V. Just touch on 2 things for VMware. Well, and for all of them, they're all agentless, so you don't have to put clients or agents on any of the VMs. We just directly connect. In the case of VMware to vSphere, it auto-populates all of the virtual machines and shows which host they're on. And if HA is enabled, it tracks any movement between those hosts. So we also do offer incremental backups for image level backups using CBT. And one of the new features that we have out is a VMware Instant Restore feature. So typically if a VM went down, you would go into the Restore wizard and start restoring that VM. And depending on the size of that VM and the size of your network backbone would kind of dictate how long you'd have to wait for that VM to come back up. And what we're able to do now is if we back up any VM to a shared volume, we can actually separate out the VMDK file. So if a VM does go down, you just point VMware to that VMDK file and have it spin up a VM directly off of the backup copy. And then it will automatically migrate that VM back into the pool. So instead of being down for an hour or 3 hours, it's literally you're down for about a minute or two until you switch over and spin that VM up again. So pretty cool stuff. We can also have automatic restores for any of our backups that we do. So it could be for virtual machines. So we could back up from one pool and automatically restore to a secondary pool so that we have more standby. This is also the case for databases or, GroupWise, Exchange, Lotus Notes, all of those as well. So some of the new features in version 4.4 that just came out, again, the VMware Instant Restore, single file restore for NSS volumes, full support for GroupWise 2014, deduplication, replication. We also added full support for SAP HANA and only requires single port network requirements. So that is my little overview. So if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and enter those in the GoToMeeting console. And we are going to go ahead and switch over to James Delmonico, who can walk us through a brief overview of just what the product looks like and show you a little bit, show you a little more what the software looks like. So again, if anyone has any questions so far, please feel free to go ahead and enter those in the GoToMeeting console and get those answered for you. So I will go ahead and turn it over to James if there aren't any questions thus far.
Okay. This is a fresh installation I did today of the Sesame Server product on Windows 2012. Everything that we do with our software is supported on Windows, Linux, and Solaris. It's actually the same build, not only for all the operating systems, but for all the customers as well. And so we have the exact same behavior and management capabilities on all the different operating systems. This is an example of just some local backups I've created on the backup server itself. In this case, I can see the system registry source. We also do backup included with our agent for Active Directory, Windows local registries, and Novell's directory services. Support the Hyper-V technology for backing up virtual machines. Here I've made a backup of some Microsoft SQL Server databases. We have this ability to do all backups, which allows us to catch everything on every SQL instance and every SQL installation on the machine. We also do the same thing for files. So this all will pick up other drive letters which a user creates without telling us, or also make the VSS snapshot underneath the system. So we pick up hidden UEFI partitions for booting or system reserved partitions or anything like that. We include open file backup technology for all operating systems by default. So this VSS snapshot of all here is contextually the same as a hypervisor level snapshot, but without the hypervisor container. Here I've connected to a VMware ESX host. We support VMware, all of the different versions, pools, high availability, and all of the other technologies that can be combined with it. When we go and make a virtual machine backup, we support the old VCB API for legacy systems. We support the VADP API for doing full image level backups of the virtual machines. We can select which disk we want even. When we make our backup tests and run them, we have the ability to do the instant recovery, which mainly just mounts our backup storage on the VMware machine, starts the VM instantly, and then it live migrates over to the production storage. And so that's real instant, not, wait 30 minutes type thing. It's actually instant. We also support CBT. That's VMware's new API that lets us do backups of just the used blocks. So we're basically backing up the snapshot chain there. And that lets us do block level, incremental, and differential backups. So those can be very, very small and fast. We're able to restore single files from our full images over to agents or to anything else in the system. Here, this is the same example. We support Citrix, VMware, and Hyper-V in the same way. And so we just connect to the API. It's fully agentless, and we can grab our virtual machines that way. We do recreate virtual machines at the restore time with the same UUID. And so that means that you don't have to reactivate Windows. UUID becomes the motherboard serial number. So I think in a big restoration, that feature is really important because you don't end up having to reactivate every single machine. You can restore them as they were. Like I mentioned, everything works the same way on Linux. This is just an example of this fresh install of the server on a Linux machine. We do bare metal for Linux physical boxes. This is a really unique bare metal product for Linux and Windows. What we do is we memorize the partition structure, the RAID structure, any type of volume management or LVM things we have going on, and the UUIDs of all the file systems. And so the actual result of this backup is a bootable CD we can use to bring up on another machine. We just boot it up, assign an IP address, and this will be responsible for formatting all the disks, mounting all the file systems, making sure everything's the exact same, and then we can go directly to restoring our full backup. And that makes a huge difference for mean time to recovery because I think commonly with those products, you're restoring a big image and then going and overlaying your full backup. With this product, you save that step and you can go directly from just this really small image of 50 megabytes or so. You're able to convert drivers and things for Windows if you have a storage change or a motherboard change, and then just restore the full and then go right to your incrementals. So it's just a one-step process there. We do support, like when I said, all the big databases, SAP, Max, DB2, Oracle. Our Oracle support is really unique because we present ourselves as a tape driver to Oracle, and so we do the backup directly from the RMAN, streaming over network to the storage device. We can do multiple streams or multiple backs at the same time, and so you don't need a landing zone for any of our backup technology. Also, with our destination side deduplication, we do dynamic block size, meaning that we can pick up VDI data from a virtual machine backup with file system data, with our database data, and that all dedupes together. Also, in the case of VMware, our full use space CBT images and our full instant recovery images also dedupe together, so you don't end up having to just deploy more storage space. We, again, use the all technology to pick up everything on the system and do the open file support. Some of the things that we do differently than other vendors is we leverage our scheduling groups here for handling all of the backups. And so when we go and make a new backup task, we just put it in the appropriate group, and the schedule runs that for us automatically. So we don't have to think about scheduling every single task or how long a machine will take or what size that backup will be. We can just let the system handle that, and our default schedule will do a full backup, leave the window open all week, and do incrementals during the week. There are many options you can create with the schedule. This is kind of just an explanation of what a simple schedule would look like. We include a catalog backup at the end of our what we call backup day, so 7:30 in the morning commonly. And that backs up everything with our system, so you don't have to worry about DR for the backup server itself. We also provide import and export capability for the catalog database. So We could export the catalog here, re-import it to Linux box if we wanted to change operating systems, and then just change our target storage path from a drive letter to a slash something path. So it really is the same software that you use everywhere. This remote GUI is not a licensed component, so you're able to put that out there anywhere you need it, maybe at a client location or a laptop or a VPN or anything like that. When we deal with disk storage, we use this data store technology. And this is really just mapping a volume or a path to make our storage. We can control the number of channels, that's our streams, and that could be anything from 1 or 5 if we wanted to maybe do virtual machine backups and not use a lot of IOPS on the cluster and just do a couple backups at the same time. Or we could be doing thousands. It's just up to license. This is the amount of storage space in this case that we've licensed for this machine. This is our high water mark where we start warning you it's about time to get some more storage, get another Exablox device. This low water mark allows us to retain data that our system would expire. So commonly when we, the logical units that we're using within this disk storage or this data store are media pools. And the only property of the media pool is the retention time frame. So in this case, it's a safe way to operate because maybe we make a full backup on a Friday night, incrementals throughout the week, and then our second Friday comes along, we'll actually make an additional copy of that backup because that'll still be within the 7-day retention period. And that's safe because we're going between 1 and 2 copies of the backup on the storage instead of between 0 and 1. If we're doing migration to some other storage medium or another SAN or NAS device or tape, then we would have that ability there. Commonly, I see weekly, monthly, annual, archival 2 years, archival 7, 5, 10-year, whatever. You can make as many different media pools as you want inside of one storage. Notably, they're all flat here as targets. So it doesn't matter when you deal with a system whether it's tape or it's disk or NAS or it's another machine or it's a Linux machine with storage somewhere. They're all just media pools. And we can back up data from clients to media pools. We can restore data from media pools to clients. We can also migrate data from one media pool to the other. And in that case, the original copy expires naturally with its regular media pool, and the new copy takes on the retention property of the second pool. At the data store level, we have the ability to do deduplication. And that deduplication allows us to be able to make the backups replicated to another dedupe storage on another machine. So we're able to actually replicate the dedupe data, and it works just like the migration, except that it's really efficient going over WAN, also efficient with the storage size. So that's really the basic, concept of using the system. There's some other things they've included here to make life as an administrator easy. Everything that our GUI does is logged here. So we have our job state backup that shows us results of all of our backups, and we can see all the SQL queries, and I can use this as a query builder. We can just cut and paste this into our email notifications to get extra reporting. Same thing happens for job state restores. We have the records of all the restores there. All the logs generated on client side are here in job state backup. We keep a little metadata in the database. We save every file related to this backup on the machine with this name, backup type, and when it started. And so we're able to locate things on file system if we want. Our big logs or the logs of the files within the backups are kept on file system. So we have a built-in database instance. It's really small. You don't have to run SQL to back this. We just handle that stuff internally. The logging for the backend is here in Daylog, and this is everything from started the service, stopped the service, checked for license, formatted a tape, ejected a tape. So you can see everything that the system does here without any type of opacity or hidden area or anything like that. So I think the combination of this stuff from an admin point of view is that you end up with one solution that you can use from any operating system with any device, technology, or storage that you want, and be able to really manage things easily, have consistency. All of the specialty modules, SQL, Hyper-V, VMware, leverage the standard agent to do the network stuff. And so the modules themselves are actually really small and maintainable on our side. So we're able to actually keep up with the development pace of the vendors there. They store everything raw inside our save sets. And so if I wanted to, I could restore a VMware backup just as files somewhere. Or I could dump a SQL backup as an SQL database, SQL file somewhere. And that gives us a lot of opportunity to control things at an admin level, because just we can go, from one API, restore it back to that API, restore it to a fresh install of that API or a different cluster, or database cluster, and we can also dump things as a file. So you really get, control end to end throughout the whole system. By default, we're doing 3 types of email notification. We can also send SNMP management traps if we'd like. And that allows us to do our own DR for the product. We send you a little attachment. Also, you can customize these to do anything like send a text. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and enter those this time in the question box. And we'll pass it back over and hear from Exablox.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Richard. And everybody should be able to see the screen. If you can't, please enter that into the chat window, and I'll be monitoring that if anybody has any problems. And it's great to be here today with SEP. This is our second webinar that we've done, and we've been working together closely over the last 6 to 8 months on solutions that are going to help customers really protect their data. Just by way of introduction, I'm the Senior Director of Product Management here at Exablox, and been in the storage industry for 20 years now, and a lot of things have changed, but as much as they have, as the adage says, they've also stayed the same. And so, what we're doing at Exablox is something quite different than what I think many of you will be used to when you look at traditional solutions, and we've been recognized by the industry and analysts like Gartner and the Cool Vendor last year in publications like InfoWorld. So we've been receiving a lot of industry accolades with regards to our technology, because we're really focusing on helping customers solve their storage problems and really reduce not only the time that they actually spend managing storage, but also the expense year over year to manage a typical backup challenge of every couple years the backup capacities are not only increasing, but you have to be able to increase the performance of your backups. That's certainly one of the things that SEP does. And as you scale the capacity, you want to be able to balance that with the combination of availability but also performance. And so the historical way that everybody has purchased storage in a scale-up model, whether that be a data domain or a VNX or a VMAX, has been you have to figure out and get your crystal ball out and figure out what the next 4 years is going to look like, maybe 5, and then buy everything up front. And you've got to make the right choice of either buying the small, medium, or large version of the particular storage vendor of your choice. And if you get that wrong, now you're stuck in a very difficult predicament. And if you, by chance, do get it right, you're still overspending in the early part of the days. And so when you're figuring out the storage challenges in your environment, the capacity growth, number of applications, etc., in a typical scale-up architecture, this is what we see a lot of customers doing, right? They pick maybe the medium-sized version of their storage controller, and that controller has a fixed amount of capacity associated with it in terms of processing, memory, network, and they put storage capacity behind that. And from day one, people may not buy all the storage up front, which means that you're actually underutilizing those storage controllers, right? There's more processing power, more network capability than the storage capacity can utilize. And over time, as you grow the environment, you do cross over a point where everything is right-sized, where now you've got a combination of performance and capacity and availability that really marries itself well with each other. However, in a very short amount of time, you wind up with a scenario where now you're overutilized. Your capacity growth continues to increase, but yet the controllers, they don't increase in memory, CPU, or network connectivity, so now you're oversubscribed and overutilized in your environment. This is oftentimes where you see a lot of customers struggling with their backup windows, right? They can't get through enough data in a short amount of time, and they wind up with the situation over time where now you're faced with either a forklift upgrade, or you have to buy another scale-up architecture and have another island of storage that you have to separate jobs to and figure out which ones are going to go to which storage target, and everybody is associated and everybody knows how difficult of a task that is. So what we've done here at Exablox is we've taken a different way. We've taken an approach that says, look, do it the web scale way. Do it the way that the Facebooks, the Googles, the large companies that are writing their own file systems and writing their own scale-out architectures, where you can actually just grow incrementally over time, and exactly what your requirements are can be met with Exablox. And so whether you're starting with 50 terabytes today or 100 terabytes and growing from there, you simply add more storage. But as you add more storage, you're actually adding more processing, network, and availability. So you're scaling out your architecture, and you're dealing with now a global namespace that grows from as little as a 3-drive, OneBlox implementation up to more than 300 terabytes in a single NFS or SMB file system. So what that means for organizations, as you size your backup, and you saw in the demo that was shown there, as more SQL Server, as more VM instances are spun up, your environment is going to change. Your processing, your backup windows, your restore windows, the amount of information you're trying to protect is going to change over time. And as you do with the Exablox approach and the scale-out approach, now you just continue to add more resources. You add additional OneBlox, they automatically join and cluster and continue to provide a global namespace for SEP to continue to write information to. But over time, you're always right-sizing that information. You always have the ideal situation of controllers with the amount of availability as well as performance that you need over time. And so you're never in a situation where you're going to have to do a forklift upgrade again. In our case, when you do have a situation 3 years from now, 5 years from now, where you want to retire the hardware that you bought today, you simply continue to grow and scale out. And in that ring, you simply unplug the old and everything else takes over for the new. There's never going to be a forklift upgrade with our solution. You just think of this as literally a pool of storage that's available to your backup application. And so we said, look, if you're really focusing on solving the storage problem and how people can right size and scale over time and meet their demands, what would the storage look like? If you had a blank sheet of paper and you're really going to focus on reimagining what you could do, what would that look like? And so we took an approach that says, number one, first we'd scale out, right? Forklift upgrades are awful. I worked with a lot of organizations at Veritas when I was there for over 9 years in Symantec, where every quarter they were retiring a third of their storage. In a 3 or 4 year cycle, you're taking out 20% of your storage. If you're retiring it on a 5 year cycle, every year you're doing a forklift upgrade for 20% of your storage, and that's never any fun. And it's definitely not a good use of time. But we'd also look and focus on how to increase that utilization of the storage that you do purchase, and that's actually one of the things we do through deduplication. But we also offer continuous data protection. So for primary storage, we are taking, on a continuous basis, snapshots of the file system. So whether you're looking at file serving and unstructured data, your users can actually go back and recover those files through our CDP capability. Clearly, if you're using us as a backup target for SEP, you're going to rely on the applications in front of that and rely on SEP to protect that. But what we see a lot of companies doing is using this pool of storage, not only for a disk-based backup recovery target, for also for primary storage. And that's really where the replication comes into play, where you're looking at protecting that information not only on-site in a single location, but if you want to remotely replicate that, you need to be able to do so. We also wanted to make something really simple, but yet extremely powerful. Our goal from a storage management perspective is to have you as an administrator, number one, not need a PhD, not have to go to a week-long training class, but then also spend as little time as possible. And I'll get into a little bit of details about how and what we do with this. And then lastly, you want to be able to manage it from anywhere. Many organizations have branch offices, multiple locations. If you're a global company, you've got certainly different locations throughout the world, and everything should be able to be managed through a single interface. I'm not talking about logging into a local management server in each data center. I'm talking about a global view of your entire infrastructure. So this is really what we've been focusing on delivering over the past few years. and really affording and giving everybody the option to take an enterprise class storage and a completely integrated solution, but yet eliminate that enterprise price tag. So the way we've done this is different than many of the other companies that you'd be used to. And I started off by saying, as much as things have changed, they've also stayed the same in that you still find customers evaluating storage vendors that are looking at traditional SAN or traditional NAS architectures that are predicated on a 30-year-old technology of RAID. Right? It was a way to initially increase performance of drives. Now it's a way for availability of drives. And many of the vendors that you're looking at are going to be the first two, either a block protocol or file protocol, but they're still built on block stores. They're still limited by what RAID can do. And there's a lot of hindrance and a lot of inflexibility that RAID affords these storage vendors, and those are the ones that you actually are seeing in your daily activities. However, there's another, and this is the web scale way, and that's looking at an object store. So now instead of having a RAID 5, RAID 6, where you're dealing with ones and zeros and parity, you actually are dealing with an object store. And now, this is what Google and Amazon and Facebook, they all use for RESTful APIs, so get, put, etc. So now you're dealing with an object, and that object can be moved anywhere in the storage it needs to, and it can scale out dynamically. It's truly a single pool of storage. You never have to worry about a volume or a LUN assignment again. The problem is that it requires RESTful APIs. Some of the applications that larger companies are doing, maybe they might write their own, but 95% of the applications that you saw earlier in the demo, VMware, SEP, that was showing as for SQL Server and so forth, none of those use RESTful APIs. So what we've done at Exablox is we've really combined the best of both worlds. We've built our own object store and focused a lot of our intellectual property on our file system that provides an object store flexibility, but yet tightly couples NFS and SMB on the front end. So now, in literally less than 5 minutes, you can drop in a OneBlox, have all the benefits of object storage, but it just works with all of your existing applications. It just looks like an NFS or an SMB target in the data store pool and the media pool that was shown with SEP. And so even though we're doing something very different on the inside, from the application perspective, you still gain all the benefits of scale-out network-attached storage. You have standardized access. You have the ability to drop in and work with traditional applications. You don't have to rewrite your applications, but yet you also get the scalability and the scale-out approach of object storage. You also get the ability for a lot of those things that I mentioned that we wanted to do in terms of deduplication and continuous data protection, replication. Those are all things that we do on an ongoing basis, but yet doesn't require any specific integration or any specific configuration on your part. And so these are really the two things that we're delivering to really change the way that storage can be managed and how we can actually improve the data protection in your environment with SEP. OneBlox is the storage appliance. OneSystem is our cloud-based management service. And this is something that truly is 100% cloud-based. So all the management, the reporting, the proactive monitoring, the heuristics that we do here within Exablox to look at every customer's environment, we know all details about every box. This is very different than a simple call home feature that really differentiates what we've done from the ground up. So number one, if you take a look at at OneBlox, this is something that is a 2U appliance. We actually scale out and do all the things that we talked about earlier in terms of deduplication and continuous data protection. But because we don't use RAID, you never have to worry about a LUN and volume assignment. And one of the questions that comes up very often is, well, how do you protect the information from a disk drive failure if you don't use RAID? And the answer is replication. We actually create 3 copies of your data. So as you scale out over time, you can lose any 2 disk drives or any 2 OneBlox and still have access to your data. As you scale out over time, you never have to reconfigure your applications because the cluster automatically discovers the additional OneBlox, automatically joins, and that pool of storage just goes from 48 terabytes to 96 terabytes to 300 plus terabytes. You can grow in granularities of an individual disk drive or OneBlox that are fully populated with 8 3.5-inch disk drives. Today we support 6 terabyte drives, so you have 48 terabytes of raw storage in a 2U form factor. You can mix and match drives over time. And the other thing is you can actually buy your own drives. Exablox will not sell you a Seagate or HDST drive with a 10x markup. You can literally go to Newegg and Fry's or Amazon, get a 6 terabyte drive today from HDST for about $270. So it really changes the economics about how you can deploy storage over time and how you can literally take advantage of storage price declines as the months and as the vendors do so, and not be tied to a vendor trying to mark up a commodity component. The other thing here in the lower right corner is you see the cappuccino there. So not only here at Exablox do we like our coffee, but you can actually set up and install a OneBlox in less than 5 minutes. And I did this with Tad Hunt, our CTO and co-founder. It's up on our website, Cappuccino or Storage. I literally unboxed a OneBlox, added 3 drives, turned it on, and began writing data before he was able to make a cappuccino. So you can do it literally less than 5 minutes. Now, there are other things you can do with OneSystem, like if you want to begin to configure and integrate with Active Directory and set up different shares with permissions or set up NFS exports. But just out of the box, a public share read-writable can be done in less than 5 minutes. And this is something that we've focused a lot of effort on in OneSystem, is to give customers the opportunity to not only manage their storage, but to have everything as simple as possible. So whether you're an MSP and you're managing multiple locations or multiple customers, you have the visibility and the control to do that within OneSystem, because we are multi-tenant from the beginning. If you want to set up remote replication, you can do that through OneSystem. But 95% of what you're going to do, adding a disk drive, replacing a failed drive, adding additional OneBlox to scale out, replacing OneBlox over time, those are all done with zero configuration. Not only zero configuration from OneSystem's perspective, but also from the backup perspective. So SEP, might see a high watermark of 25 gig today. Well, tomorrow that can be 50 gig, or in an hour that can be 50 gig, simply by adding additional OneBlox. You don't have to reconfigure SEP to take advantage of that. So there's a lot of things that OneSystem really affords that flexibility to do. Because when we take a look at what we've been focused on over time, is we're really the only company that's focused on a web scale-out approach. But yet we want to maintain that plug-and-play compatibility. Yes, there are other object storage vendors on the market, but none of them are actually doing what we're doing. Most of them are focused on the petabyte scale problem. We're focused on the tens of terabytes to 500 terabyte range of problems. We also have a starting price point of $10,000. So for literally less than $12,000 list price, you can have a 48 terabyte solution today and installed and up and running in 5 minutes. You can continue to use drives that you purchased today, but you can also take advantage of those price declines and take advantage of the economics of just retail drive pricing. And you can choose SATA, SAS, and mix and match. But if you really take a look at where the value of the software, the value of the intellectual property that we've developed for dedo, remote replication, scale out, it really crushes that dollar per terabyte metric when you start to take a look at commodity drives and being purchased and used for that. It really changes the economics of enterprise storage features that most people want, but either A, can't afford, or B, don't have the storage expertise to manage. And so we're really changing the game about how companies can really take advantage of web scale technology, but then use it in their environment in really a plug-and-play fashion. So I just want to give everybody a quick 15-minute overview about what we're doing. There was another question that came in about NFS and iSCSI. And today, if you take a look at where we're focused, it's really on the file system side. So NFS and SMB is available today. We don't provide an iSCSI block protocol. That's something that we're evaluating, but we're focused at least for the near term, really on the file system side. So for the virtual environment, for using SEP to protect those applications in VMware or Hyper-V, you can literally just use this as an NFS target or an SMB target to SEP. You don't have to worry about block protocol and trying to assign volumes and LUNs that way. So with that, let me turn it back to, let's see, I'm not sure, Lanai, if you're going to go or who I should turn it back to.
Yeah, no, that's fine, Darren. Hey, thanks for the presentation. That was awesome. We did have a question that came in for you. So the question was, is support for VMware or other hypervisors on your roadmap?
Yeah, so one of the things that we focused on initially is the data protection challenges as well as the unstructured data challenges. So for now, with the OneBlox, it's really focused more on the streaming workloads. We don't, even though we have NFS, we haven't gone through that VMware certification, as well as depending upon your environment, the number of IOPS, we haven't optimized our software for that. That is something that we are going to be doing, but we don't do it today. With regards to SMB, we do use SMB 3.0, but there are extensions within SMB 3.0 that Hyper-V needs that we're also working on. So right now, for a primary data store, whether it be Hyper-V or VMware, we're not a good fit. We will be later this year, but right now we're not a good fit for that. For the data protection side, certainly where SEP is protecting those applications running on VMware, we're a perfect fit.
Great. And if anyone else has any other questions, either for SEP or Exablox, please go ahead and enter those in the questions box. And I just wanted to kind of give a little bit of feedback too. As Sean had mentioned, this is our second webinar that we've done together, and just a little personal experience. After the last webinar, you know, we had some, I would imagine, Sean, you probably talked to some of our customers, and we spoke with some of yours. And one of the things that I thought was really great was all of the customers that we spoke to that are using Exablox just raved about it. They absolutely loved it. And I do have to say, in the industry, that's a little bit rare. So that kind of struck me as something that was a little bit unique and really refreshing, to be honest. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of that feedback as well. So if there aren't any other questions, I will go ahead and turn it back to Richard to wrap up.
All right, thanks, Lanai. Yeah, big thanks to Lanai, James, and Sean for hopping on today and talking more about SEP and Exablox. I will be sending a recording to all those who registered for this, so be on the lookout for that either later today or tomorrow. So everyone, thank you for attending, and stay tuned for the next webinar series. I think we will have one either later this month or in May for sure. So yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead and send either SEP or an Exablox either questions, and we'll get to you shortly. Thanks so much for joining, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.